Chapter 20. It was the 31st of March, and Tommy had a plan. All he needed for his plan to work was for Phil to let him go. No chance, Phil said, as he put another packet of Walker's crisps into the shopping basket. Why not? Tommy whined. Now, he did have self-respect, but that wouldn't stop him from causing a scene in the middle of the snacks aisle of Tesco's. Tommy, you're 15. That means I get a cheaper train ticket. As if you'd buy a train ticket to begin with. You'd probably jump over the ticket barriers. Tommy scowled at him for assuming such a horrid thing. That he would totally do. I've seen people do it on YouTube, it's possible. This is why I won't let you go to London. Fine. He resigned and threw a packet of strawberry laces into Phil's hands. I'm still going round Tubbo's tomorrow, though. We need to finish season 7 of Grey's Anatomy. Phil nodded and walked them into the drinks aisle. Normally, Tommy would feel immense guilt for lying to Phil, the creator of Minecraft and only example of a good man. But he needed to do this. If he had to lie about being interested in a hospital show with too many fucking seasons to make this happen, then so be it. He had planned a journey to London with Tubbo and Ronbu for tomorrow, which he would do, with or without Phil's permission. The number of days to his birthday had gotten shorter. He wanted to make every day count, whether that was creating more memories with his friends or being the cause for Phil's blood pressure to rise. The next day, he left the house with a bag packed with his Christmas money and Wilbur's credit card. He was also wearing one of the sweatshirts Wilbur got him, so the act of stealing canceled out. He was ready to make this the best day out for Tubbo and Ronbu that they would ever experience. This was for them, after all. Are you sure we won't get in trouble for this? Ronbu asked for the 20th time as they boarded the train to Westminster. Ronbu, you are already on thin ice for wasting our money. It's not my fault they didn't believe I was young enough for a child's ticket. Wow, that must suck. Tubbo grumbled. He was pissed off that the lady at the desk believed Tubbo to be young enough for a child's ticket, despite him being the oldest, and 1 year over the child ticket age. Grow taller then, Tommy said. It was simple advice. People chose to be short. As soon as this train's open for the next stop, I will throw you out those doors. Can you even reach the button to open them? Thankfully, the train began to move before Tubbo could proceed with his plans of murdering Tommy. Ronbu sat in between the two of them and asked, What are we even going to do in London? Yeah, you haven't told us anything. It's a surprise. Tommy beamed. Tubbo turned to Ronbu, as if this was going to be the last time he'd ever be on a train. We're going to return home in body bags. They'd struggle to find a body bag to fit me. You'd be fine though, Tubbo. What the fuck? Tommy dragged them across the London Bridge, ignoring Tubbo and Ronbu's discussion of how swimmable the River Thames looked. He stopped in front of their destination with a grin plastered on his face. Tommy, I was joking about the body bag comment early on the train. Please don't tell me this is real. Welcome to the London Dungeon. He tugged them by their arms closer to the entrance. 2 hooded statues, taller than Ronbu, with scythes and axes, stood by the half-drawn gated walkway. Blood covered the inside walls, skeletons were inside cages, and a medieval jester with a cleaver lodged into the man's head kept trying to jump scare people. The special effects makeup was a bit too realistic, especially as Tommy had seen before what having a weapon impaled through your skull looked like up close, thanks to Icarus. Is it too late to go home? Ronbu prodded as he pointed at the writing carved on top of the entrance archway. I'm not feeling like entering at my own peril. Why is there a fake dead body in a wheelbarrow? Tubbo asked, tempted to reach out and slap the face of the body. Tommy stopped Tubbo from attacking the prop. Who said it's fake? My own eyes. Shut up and get in the line, big man. He pushed them forward and joined the queue. When you told us about your idea to go to London, I expected something different, Tubbo said. Maybe Hyde Park? The Boris bikes? Not a tourist attraction representing the gruesome parts of British history. Tommy gripped onto his friend's shoulders, holding him still. There are torture rooms, Tubbo. Torture rooms. All right, I'm interested, Tubbo replied, disregarding the worried look on Ronbu's face. He didn't trust Tubbo in any torture rooms, whether it was a tourist attraction or not. But can we go to Hyde Park later on? We can do anything you want today. Tubbo opened his mouth, and Tommy could guess what he was about to suggest. Besides going to museums, if I wanted to look at old things, I would have stayed home with Phil. The man is in his mid-30s, Tommy. He's not that old, Ronbu defended. Anyone over the age of 18 to me is considered elderly, Tommy said as the three approached the desk. He gave the booking information to the lady, who had her throat all bloodied and ripped out. They followed the medieval jester to a dark room, with the other people in their tour group, and Tubbo attempted many times to grab the cleaver currently embedded in the man's head. Despite Ronbu explaining to him many times that it was a prop, it didn't deter Tubbo. It took the man jump-scaring Tubbo to death for him to stop annoying the employees. Before the boat ride to the tour rooms, they had the option to have their picture taken in a guillotine, and Tommy would never pass up the opportunity to put Ronbu in one of the holds. Ronbu, get in there, he ordered, and gripped onto the rope connected to the unfortunately fake blade at the top of the device. He, of course, bought the pictures that made it look like he was about to behead no one other than Ronbu Beloved, whilst Tubbo stood up his side, smiling. That felt like a targeted attack, Ronbu complained as the three returned to the group for the boat ride. That's because it was. Ronbu huffed loudly and entered the boat. The London dungeon tour began. I still don't get why we got kicked out, Ronbu grumbled with his jeans still wet from the boat ride 30 minutes prior. They were in the London Underground, not particularly knowing which train to take. Tubbo had a pen that was designed to look like a needle injection with fake blood in it, which he had stolen from the London Dungeon gift shop when they were forced off the property. You kept saying, Dad, to every single fucking skeleton we saw, and even the Grim Reaper guy, Tommy shouted. And it doesn't even make sense. You've never had a dad, Tubbo added. I thought that was the joke, Tommy said, confused. He has two mums, Tommy. Oh. Tommy stopped to high-five Ronbu. I hate you guys. We didn't even get to finish the Jack the Ripper part, Tubbo proclaimed as he clicked his injection pen. Look, I'm not a judgmental person, but I'm judging you. You were too excited for him to show up, Tommy said. He was interesting. Didn't he kill and mutilate innocent women? Ronbu asked. Exactly. He's a wrong'un. And by association, Tubbo is a wrong'un now, because he was excited to see the serial killer. Tubbo pounced forward, his hands reaching to tackle Tommy to the ground, and chased him along the train platform until Tommy ran into an open train. The doors closed shut seconds after he got inside. As the train moved, he flipped Tubbo off. Then he remembered that he didn't know where this train was going. Being separated from your friends and lost on a moving train were consequences of making Tubbo angry for his obsession with British serial killers. He looked up to see that this was the Jubilee line stop, and took a picture of it, giggling to himself. Year 13 reset. Tommy. Image attached. I didn't know they named a train line after your song. Wilbur. Toms, what the fuck are you doing in London? Tommy. Don't tell Phil? Wilbur. Get me a souvenir and deal. Tommy. All right, I'll use your credit card. Wilbur. My what? He got off at the next stop, and eventually reunited with Tubbo and Ronbu in front of an arcade and amusement center, a mile away from the London dungeon. that they were now forever banned from for public disturbance and harassment. He didn't think he was gone for that long, but Ronbu had a shopping bag in his hands, and Tubbo was wearing an I Love London hat. "Why did you buy Britain's merch?" Tommy asked, as they walked into the first floor of the arcade. "They're a good content creator. If you actually looked into the colonial history of Britain and the British Empire, then you'd want to rethink the..." Ronbu began to say, before the two British people scowled at him. Fine, enjoy the merch with ignorance. After Tommy managed to win a stuffed pig from a claw machine, which he gave to Ronbu because it was ugly, and Tubbo had satisfied his gambling addiction with the weird 2p machines, Ronbu pulled them towards a photo booth. "Can we take pictures in there?" Ronbu asked. His sunglasses were off, since the arcade had dark lighting, and as much as Tommy wanted to abuse the claw machines more, he couldn't deny the pleading in Ronbu's eyes. "You bought a Polaroid camera today, and you want to use more money for pictures?" Tubbo protested, frowning at him as he sipped on his blue slushie. "We can use the booth to stand the camera up so we can take our own." Ronbu yanked them closer. "Let's finesse capitalism with photography." "That makes no sense," Ronbu said, causing Tommy to glare at him. "You know what? Yeah, no more capitalism." They got into the booth, and Tommy forced Ronbu to put the pig on the floor because he refused to have pictures taken with it. "Don't exclude Michael. You've already named the ugly fucker. Stop insulting my son." "Our son," Tubbo corrected. "Just put the pig down and set up the camera, dickheads," Tommy sighed. They took many pictures, though most of them had Tubbo attacking Tommy. One of them included Tommy and Tubbo flipping each other off, with Ronbu holding up a peace sign. And then Tubbo put Tommy into a headlock, whilst Ronbu snuck Michael into the frame. Needless to say, the photos weren't going on any social media site. "One picture with the mask off. Come on, Boo." But imagine the mystery these pictures will cause if we soak them in resin. Future civilizations will be wondering why this random boy is wearing a face mask pre-pandemic. Ronbu said. "Pre-pandemic? Don't question it." Ronbu shrugged them off. "But fine, one with it off." The final picture was of the three of them huddled together, smiling brightly at the Polaroid camera, with Michael in his deserved place, on the floor. Tommy held the printed photo in his hands. "Can I keep this one?" He wondered if the picture would stay in his notebook after his death if he stuck it onto a page. This way, he wouldn't forget their faces. "Ah, of course Tommy wants the nice one," Tubbo teased, dodging a smack to the head. "What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Little soft, wholesome boy. Die. Literally die. I could kill you right now." "But you won't," Tubbo taunted. He shook his head, laughing. "No, I won't." "Tommy's being nice for once?" "I didn't say you were safe from me, Ranbu." "Welp." After wasting more money, Wilbur's money, on arcade machines, they traveled to Hyde Park and sat on a bench with ice cream. Tommy failed to hide his disgust over Ronbu choosing mint chocolate ice cream. He was a strong believer that those who liked mint in desserts didn't brush their teeth. "What else should we do?" Tubbo asked as he attempted to feed a squirrel a chocolate flake, only to be stopped by Ronbu. "Tubbo, don't give the animal chocolate, it'll die." "I've always wanted to steal something from Tesco's," Tommy offered. Ronbu let out a loud sigh. "Let's not do that." "I didn't know I was friends with pussies." "You do know this. You tell us this every single day." "Oh yeah." The three laughed, and Tommy turned to look at both of them. "Is there anything wild on you guys' bucket list?" "Why do you have a bucket list? You're not going to die anytime soon," Tubbo asked, his head tilted. Tommy cleared his throat and avoided his eyes. The ice cream cone felt colder in his hands. An awkward silence followed. Why do you act like that whenever death is mentioned? Tubbo said, with an edge to his tone, as if this was something he wanted to get off his chest. Tommy stayed quiet, biting the inside of his cheek. At Clementine's party, you... Ronbu stood up abruptly. I'm gonna go get a drink from the ice cream truck. Tubbo scooted closer. Tommy flinched as his shoulder brushed against his. The silence continued, though it was tenser. Are you sick? Tubbo whispered, hesitant. Tommy paused for a moment before looking back at him. He did want to tell his closest friend about his inevitable death. After all, he promised Tubbo that he would one day. But he couldn't today. Not on the day where he wanted to forget all his troubles. And do it healthily this time. No alcohol included. Informing your best friend that you were destined to die due to your own stupidity over a myth that practically controlled every event in your life wasn't good news to give. No, I'm not sick, Tommy muttered. He closed his eyes and shivered in his seat. It's fine, Tubbs. I'm not going to die on you guys anytime soon. The lie felt like acid on his tongue. It would have been better for him to not say anything at all, rather than empty assurances and false promises. You better fucking not. I still need my best man at my platonic wedding. A bittersweet warmth burned his heart. You'd choose me as your best man? Of course I would. A smile crept upon him. Tommy was tempted to just hug the shit out of him right there. But Tubbo didn't really like hugs. Instead, he fixed the twisted red bandana around Tubbo's neck and leaned back, proud. Tubbo glanced down, grinning, and tugged on Tommy's. He laughed as Tommy yelped at how it almost strangled him. Clingy, Tommy said. Tubbo let the comment slide. I don't know what's up with you, especially recently, Tubbo eventually said. But just know, I'm here for you, man. I know, Tommy mumbled, scared his voice would break if it were any louder. Trust me, I know. Tubbo patted Tommy on the shoulder, reminding him of Phil. He chuckled at Tubbo's awkwardness, but appreciated the gesture nevertheless. I want to get my ears illegally pierced, Ronbu said, interrupting the moment between the two. Illegally, you say? Tommy said, smirking. Let's do this shit then. It took them a while to find a tattoo and piercing parlor. When they did find one, they were immediately turned away because for some stupid reason, minors can't get piercings without parental consent. So Tommy did the natural thing and found an overaged woman on the street who he paid to pretend to be Ronbu's mother. Sharon happily agreed for a decent price. Tommy and Tubbo watched from the waiting chairs as Ronbu chose the piercing he wanted at the desk. What if he gets the Hello Kitty one? Tubbo said as he pointed to the glass showcase. I can hear you and no, Ronbu yelled. It's probably to do with toxic masculinity, Tubbo whispered to Tommy. Do you even know what that means? Nope. Tommy wheezed. Never change, Tubbs. Ronbu sat in the chair as the man approached him with a needle. To Tommy's dismay, Ronbu didn't scream and cry like a little baby as the man pierced his ears. As much as he valued his friend, it would have made an entertaining vlog. Ronbu ended up getting a black stud in one ear and a white one in the other. He kept defending his choice of colors by saying it was part of his brand. Tommy's phone vibrated in his pocket. Family chat. Phil. Tommy, do you want to tell me why, when I go over to Tubbo's house, his parents tell me they thought you and Tubbo were at ours? Tommy. Image attached. Wilbur. please don't tell me Ronbu is getting his ears done in Claire's. Also, motherfucker, isn't that illegal? Phil, you're in for it when you get home. Technoblade, get some more tattoos while you're at it. Phil, if you do that, you're double dead. Tommy, glad you approve of our day trip, Phil. Phil, take the next train home. Tommy, I mean it. Answer your phone. I can literally see you reading these messages. Tommy grinned and switched off his phone. Do you sell temporary tattoos here as well? If Tommy knew that his question would result in Tubbo leaving the tattoo and piercing parlor with a sleeve of dinosaur tattoos, then he wouldn't have asked. I'm hungry. Can we get meal deals at Tesco's? Tubbo said, still admiring his temporary tattoos. We could go to any restaurant or a fancy cafe in London, and you want a meal deal? Tommy frowned. What can I say? I'm a humble and modest man. Fine. Tesco's it is. They ended up stealing a shopping cart from Tesco's. For legal reasons, the cart was unattended, and it was Tubbo's idea, not his. Exhilaration pulsed inside of him as the trio rushed through the streets of London with the stolen shopping cart. He leapt inside, and gusts of wind blew back his hair. His face flushed as he shouted at the top of his lungs. Strings of his laughter echoed in the streets, followed by Ronbu gushing that they were going to be caught, and Tubbo yelling for Ronbu to push them faster. Onwards, my friends! Across the bridge! He cackled. Adrenaline pumped through him, but the good kind. The best kind. He truly felt alive. He peered up at the dark sky as cars sped past them. The same crown-shaped constellation gleamed back down at him. He leaned back on the handlebar and embraced the harsh breeze that bit at his nose. Giddiness overwhelmed him. At this moment, nothing could remove the smile off his lips. As they reached the end of the bridge, and were certain that the Tesco's security guard had stopped chasing them, they stopped on the bank of the River Thames. They sat under dimmed streetlights. Tommy and Tubbo were still inside the shopping cart, whilst Ronbu was on the grass. Can we use the shopping cart as a boat over the Thames? Tommy asked. There are several flaws in your plan, Ronbu said, his face furrowed with confusion. Not necessarily. I think we can fit all three of us in it. I was more referring to the holes in the cart. Shit. Plus, if we went into the River Thames, we'd come out with every single disease known to man. Even hemorrhoids? Tommy asked, sounding horrified, causing Ronbu to put his head in his hands. You need a donut pillow for your butt if you got that, Tubbo commented. Don't talk about my ass. You literally brought up hemorrhoids. Both of you, please shut up, Ronbu begged. Damn, the guy gets his ears pierced and suddenly thinks he's the shit. Toxic masculinity, Tubbo agreed. Tommy burst out laughing. That's not what that term... Tommy pointed his finger at Ronbu, threateningly. Never explain it to him. Ronbu sighed, and got out his Polaroid camera, already done with this conversation. You in your photography arc? Ronbu smiled, and pointed the camera at him. And you're in your model arc. He took the picture, and showed Tommy the result. How do I look so damn good whilst in a shopping cart? Pinterest would eat that picture up. Tommy snatched it out of his hands. Too bad, it's going on my wall in my room. The nightlife of London resonated around them as the trio settled into a comfortable silence. He opened his bag and admired the many pictures Ronbu had taken throughout the day. His favorite being Tubbo attempting to get onto a Boris bike with his short legs. Though he couldn't deny the softness he felt whenever he came across a picture of Tubbo or Ronbu smiling at the camera. When should we head back? Tommy asked, quietly. Soon, but not right now, Tubbo said as he stretched out in the cart and stared up at the sky. I like this. Yeah, we should do this more often. Ronbu agreed. Tommy smiled at them. This is what he wanted for today. For his friends to enjoy themselves. And it seemed like he achieved that. Tubbo fell asleep on the train ride home, and Tommy didn't have the heart to annoy him by shaking him awake every time the train stopped at a station. Though he definitely would have if Tubbo didn't look exhausted. Oh, guys, I almost forgot. Ronbu pulled his bag onto his lap and picked out 2 little gift bags. He passed it to Tommy and stared at the asleep Tubbo. I'll give it to him when I get to his. Tommy frowned at it, but opened it anyway. It was a silver locket with a crown engraved on the front. A necklace? Open it. Inside was a picture of Ronbu with the caption, "My beloved," below it. Tommy gaped at it. What? If you two have bandanas, I have a locket. Tommy didn't hesitate to tie it around his neck. You really went all out for this. I wanted to be included. Ronbu joked. His cheeks warmed. You'll always be included. Soft Tommy is back. I take it back. I will purposely isolate you from everything now. He quipped, making Ronbu chuckle. Tommy fiddled with the chain, staring down at the locket with a permanent smile. Cheers, boob boy. That's it. Ronbu snapped, half-heartedly. I want the locket back. Nope, no take-backsies. How old are you? Tommy grinned at him. Well, technically, I've been 15 in every life, despite Sisyphus, which was like 13. So do the maths for me. Mentally, you are 4. Okay, got it. You're a wrong'un for hanging out with a 4-year-old, Ronbu. Can this train be any slower? He exclaimed loudly as the train started to move again. Tommy laughed and tucked the locket over his bandana. Reminders of his best friends hung around his neck, and he liked it that way. The warmth inside Tommy died when Phil picked them up from the station. The air inside of the car was cold. Tommy sat in the back and kept staring at Phil in the rearview mirror. The man looked pissed. But he had to do this today, even if it meant he was grounded until his birthday, and may have thoroughly annoyed his foster father. He switched his phone back on, and the date glaring back taunted him. It was the 1st day of April, and he had 9 days to live. His eyes stung. He didn't know what to feel, or even what to do. The second Ronbu and Tubbo left the car, it hit him. This might have been the last day trip, or full day they may ever have together. The last time they'd fuck around and act like careless teenagers who believed the world was at their fingertips, and that everything revolved around them. He won't ever be able to see the London night sky with the dim streetlights and faint stars providing the only source of light. The comfort his 2 best friends at his side brought drowned out the cold winds. Death loomed over a cursed boy who just wanted to live. A tear dropped onto his phone screen, landing on the date. Loneliness overwhelmed him. Despite being at the peak of his life, enjoying his youth a couple of moments ago, he had never felt more alone. The car stopped in the driveway of his home. Was it even his home? Or just a house he was waiting to die in? He ambled inside, following Phil, who wouldn't even look at him. He took off his coat and sat down where Phil gestured for him to sit. He clutched the locket in his hands, hating the expression on Phil's face. Tommy didn't deserve to be cared about by Phil, or by anyone. He shouldn't matter this much to these people, especially when he'd be gone soon. His eyes stung again. He rubbed them with his sleeve, harshly. He didn't want to be another family member the Crafts would have to mourn. Phil had already lost a wife. A son shouldn't be buried in the same graveyard. His yearning for a family was selfish. He made these people get attached to him, and for what? For him to just die and leave their family with an empty slot? Someone they couldn't replace no matter how hard they tried, no matter how many other kids they may adopt or foster. It wouldn't feel the same. He couldn't do that to them. Not to the people who welcomed him inside and treated him as if he was their own. "Why'd you go even when I told you not to?" Phil asked. Even when the man was pissed at him, there was still a degree of care in his voice. His concern outweighed his anger. Tommy peered across at him. "I wanted to have fun with my friends." Tommy jeered, trying to ignore the fumes inside of him, just waiting for an open flame, for anything to latch onto. "I wanted to create memories with them. Is that so much to ask for?" He knew he was being unreasonable, and a fucking asshole for treating Phil this way, but he couldn't help it. If this family wasn't going to drive him away, then he'd do it for them. He didn't care if every fiber in his body hated doing this. It was something he had to do. "Yes," Phil retorted, his mouth twisted into a scowl. "Yes, it is when it means you go to London alone, without an adult, when you're 15. Tommy shrunk more into himself. He didn't want Phil to be angry at him. The last thing he ever wanted to do was disappoint him. And yet here he sat, cowering in his seat, facing the repercussions of his own stupid actions, all because he didn't want to die unhappy. Silent tears wet his face. Phil exhaled deeply. "Mate, I get you're upset, but this is something I need to do something about." Tommy couldn't stop the words from leaving his mouth. "Send me back, then." "What? No, if I'm something you need to deal with, a problem for you, then send me back." He seethed, his jaw clenched and hands shaking. "I'll be gone soon anyway. Might as well get it done with." "Tommy, what are you talking about?" Phil looked at him so softly, and he wished for his death to come sooner. He breathed out harshly, his chest compressing against itself. "I shouldn't be here." He wept, closing in on himself. "I'm not a part of your family, and you are," Phil argued, voice stern and confident, only making Tommy crumble even further. "I'm not!" His voice raised as his heartbeat did. "I don't deserve to be. I'm just this stupid fucking foster kid that you let into your house and causes you shit. I've had so many second chances when I shouldn't, and this is what I shouldn't have." "Tommy, no, stop it!" He stood up. His chair fell backwards onto the floor. You treat me like I'm..." He cut himself off, and his blurred gaze stared into Phil's blue eyes. He couldn't help but imagine how dimmed they would be after Tommy's death. As Phil moved over to him, Tommy jerked backwards and hugged himself tightly. "Don't care about me. Please, just don't. There's no fucking point. Don't..." He whimpered as a hand touched his shoulder. A warm grip that would have brought comfort to him, but now only pain followed. "Tommy," Phil whispered, voice gentle, and he practically melted. He couldn't do this. "Listen to me, okay?" The man placed another hand on Tommy's shoulder. "I love you like you're my own son." His eyes watered, and his head pounded. He didn't want to hear this. Not now, not ever. "Don't say that!" He spat harshly, hating how his body shook. "Don't fucking say that!" He ripped Phil's hands off him, I don't know why you're acting out, Tommy, but I need you to know that. You shouldn't! Tommy sobbed, his voice breaking. He ran upstairs, ignoring Phil's shouts for him to come back. He wiped his face with his trembling hands and tried to forget Phil's words, his phrase that would haunt him in the void until his next rebirth. He loved this family, and he was a fool to forget what happened to those he cared about. He collapsed onto his bed and huddled under the covers. His cries echoed in the dark room, and guilt flooded through him. Phil had done nothing but be nice and loving towards him, and he treated the man like that. Tobias was right. He really was selfish. The door opened. You going to tell me why you were shouting at Dad? Wilbur asked, his tone patient and kind. Something Tommy didn't want to hear right now. He sniffed and turned to the other side, facing the wall. He clutched his locket tighter. Good night, Wilbur. He dismissed, hoping for this day to end already. He didn't hear the door close. If something's bothering you, we can— Leave me the fuck alone, Wilbur! He snapped, with more heat, digging himself into a pit of more guilt. The door finally shut.